Okay, good. So, welcome to Breakneck to the Bible, 2019-2020, class number 22. Is the evening also of that we are going to be celebrating the holiday called Lag BaOmer. And Lag BaOmer is the 33rd day of the Omer, and hopefully, if we remember, we'll count at the end of class. And so Lag BaOmer is the day that the great Tana Shimon Bar Yochai died. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai died on the 33rd day, and he actually was the author of the Zohar. And so the Zohar that we have available to us today was written by the great sage Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, roughly the first century of the Common Era, and so roughly 1900 and some odd years ago, maybe 2,000 years ago was he born, and so he went and he wrote down, and he said when he died. So there's a few different stories about him that when he died, they weren't sure where to bury him, and so then a fire came out from Meron to show that that's where he was supposed to be buried, and that's one reason why he's buried in Meron, why people light fires, and just he was and what happened was also that they were, he said when he died, he said you should celebrate because what happened was the last day of his life, he was in the middle of teaching a class, and he was running out of time because the sun was setting, and what happened was he went ahead and and Hashem held the sun up so he could finish teaching Torah. He says, when I die, he says, you can celebrate because I've been able to teach over all my Torah. And so usually on Lag BaOmer, there's if you go to Meron in Israel where he's buried, usually there's hundreds of thousands of people that go up there, they camp out there, and it's really kind of, they go ahead and there's a huge gathering of people there, but now due to Corona, so there sadly has not been there's a very small crowd, and they're doing it. I'm trying to see if we could actually, one of the pluses of doing a class on Zoom is that we're able to actually show you some of the things that are going on. So, and actually, if you want, you're here. This was from earlier today, where they had where they had the different lightings, and there's you can see. I'll share the screen with you, so you can actually see what's going on. But they have all these. So can you see the screen now? You see the screen here? So here's where they're pouring oil on top of what they light, and they're trying to wear protective masks, or most of the people they're trying to wear protective masks. So here they have pouring the oil on top of it, and they're going to light it when it comes time to. Here's a picture of his grave, by the way. These blue tops are right underneath is where they're buried. And then Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is buried underneath over here. And when it gets closer to the nighttime, they're going to bury it. And so here they have Right, and so here, so they have their bands there, and so they're going ahead and they're going ahead and they are and so they're going to go and they're going to light, and they have a band here playing. So if you want, you go to the see a lot of the musicians here have face things on them. If you want to go ahead and you want to, if you go to the Yeshiva World, YeshivaWorld.com, they actually have they've live streamed it from there. So if you want to go there and check it out, you can go there and check it out as well. For those of you who are watching on Facebook Live, you could also go to Zoom, and you could go ahead and you could get us on Zoom as well when we're doing our class. Okay, so now we ended off last week in the middle of chapter 14, in the middle of the war of the 4 kings against the 5 kings. And what happened was the 4 kings went and they beat the 5 kings, and then they made a terrible tactical decision that they went and the 5 kings of Sodom, Amorah, Admah, Zeboim, and Soar. Right, those were 5 city-states that were all clustered right now what is today known as the Dead Sea, and they were in that area, and they captured them, and the kings managed to get away, but they took a lot of all their wealth and their people, and what happened was they made a very poor tactical decision, that they also took Lot, who was Avram's nephew, as a captive. And when they took Lot, who was Avram's nephew, as a captive, so that meant that then what happened was there was a giant named Og Melech Habashan, right? He was one of the people that actually was survived. He actually somebody who hitched a ride on the ark, and he went ahead and he came running to tell Abraham that Lot was taken captive. Why did he want to tell Abraham that Lot was taken captive? That was very important for him. Why? Because he really had ulterior motives. He had his eyes on Sarah. So he figured that Abraham is the goody-goody that Abraham is, he's going to chase after the 4 kings. He's going to get killed, and then Sarah is going to be a widow. And so he's going to then go and get a chance to marry Sarah. And so he comes running to Abraham and says, listen, this is what happened. And Abraham goes ahead and he goes to his yeshiva, and he takes with him 318 men that were learning in the yeshiva, and he goes and he takes them, and he goes chasing after the 4 kings and 5 kings. He goes ahead and he beats them. He and Eliezer go ahead and they beat them, and then they come back, and there's a whole story. So actually, we'll read from actually chapter 14, verse 13. We'll just read it we'll read through it from verse 13 all the way to the Yesod Chumash bottom page 63 to the end of page 65. But then there came the fugitive and told Abraham the Ivrit, who dwelt in the plains of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner, these being Abraham's allies. And when Abraham heard that his kinsman was taken captive, armed his disciples who had been born in his house, 318, and he pursued them as far as Dan. He with the servants deployed against them at night and struck them. He pursued them as far as Hova, which is the north of Damascus. He brought back all the possessions. He also brought back his kinsmen, Lot with his possessions, as well as the woman and the people. Some went out to meet him after he returned from defeating Kedar Omer, and the kings that with him to the kings of Shava, which is the king's valley. Malchitah, the king of Salem, brought up bread and wine. He was a priest of God the Most High. Blessed him, saying, blessed is Avram of God, Most High, maker of heaven and earth. Blessed is God, the Most High, has delivered your foes into your hand. Gave him a tenth of everything. King of Sodom said to Abraham, give me the people and take possessions for yourself. Abraham said to the king of Sodom, I lift up my hand to Hashem, God the Most High, maker of heaven and earth, if so much as a thread or a shoe strap, for I shall take from anything of yours. So you shall not say, it is I who made Abram rich. Far from me, only what the young men have eaten, and the shares of men who accompany me, on their Eshkol and Mamre, they will take their portion. And this really wraps up the story here. Now, if I was to ask you the question, was this a good thing that Abraham did? Was this a bad thing that Abraham did? What would you answer me? Feel free to chime in. Right? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
In the face of it, it seems like a good thing.
It seems like a good thing, right? This is wonderful, right? What Abraham did, right? It's wonderful what Abraham did. Okay, well, the problem is, so now let's read through it and let's take apart all the different things that he did, because there are many different pieces over here and many different facets, and we're going to have to, we'll take them one by one. Okay, so when Abraham heard that Lot was taken captive, was it a good thing to go save his nephew? Was it a bad thing? Right, in verse 13. Now also it has to be interesting that Abram is called the Ivri, right? Why is Abram called the Ivri? Right, because Ivri means the other side. Because Abram was somebody who was on one side of the world and the whole rest of the world was on the other side. Right? Abram was a monotheistic, and the whole rest of the world really was not monotheistic. Right? So that's why it's called Abram HaIvri, right? Abram from the other side. Right? And he dwelt the plains of Mamre, the Amorite, the brother of Eshkol, the brother of Anna, these being Abraham's allies. So Abraham, right, he's hanging around, right, and this is near, right, in the plains of Mamre. Anyone know where the plains of Mamre are? Right, plains of Mamre. So the plains of Mamre is what we know modern day Kiryat Arba or Chevron. Right, that is where it's from. Okay, and if you don't mind, everyone who's on Zoom, if you don't mind to mute yourself, except when you want to speak, because there's some background noise coming in. So, so what happens is like this, is that, so he's dwelling in a place called Kiryat Arba, Chevron, right, under Eshkol Mamre, right, so, right, these are different areas. And so now verse 14 says, and when Avram learned that his kinsman was taken captive, he armed his disciples, who had been born in his house, 318, pursued them as far as Dan. So what happens is he had 318 people that he already had that sort of joined Abraham's community, and Abraham says, "Okay, it's time to go to battle. Right? My nephew's been captured. We need to go ahead and we need to go ahead and we need to save him." And so he goes in and he shuts down his yeshiva that they were busy learning Torah, and he now takes them to go to battle. So was this a good thing or a bad thing? Right. So this was again, technically it's a good thing, but the way he did it was
He's probably.
What? Say it again. Mom, go ahead. What do you say?
He's probably very much outnumbered. It seems like a losing effort.
Right. So he seems right. He's very much outnumbered.
5 kings against, with all their men, against 318 people.
Okay, right. So he seems outnumbered. So that's never a problem because God's in charge, right? Right. So God wants him to go. So it's the right thing to do. He should go do it. The problem is that he came into his yeshiva and he shut it down wholesale. means he just went ahead and he just went ahead and he shut it down. He walked in, he said, everyone, close your Gemara, it's time to go. And because of that, says the Talmud, that this is the reason why the Jewish people had to spend 400 years of exile in Egypt. And he shut this down like this. And so because of that, it caused the Jewish people to have to spend 400 years, 430 years in exile. Right? And the question is, right, what's the connection? So the answer is like this. Let's discuss what he should have done. The first thing is, what he should have done is he should have walked over to each one by themselves, right, individually asking them, do you want to go fight, or do you want to stay back? And what happened is that he said that, right? He didn't ask them. He just shut down the yeshiva. So by shutting down the yeshiva wholesale, right? So that goes ahead, and that went ahead, and that showed that a sort of a lack of servitude, right? It shows a lack of servitude, and by showing this lack of servitude, so then he goes ahead and because it was a lack of servitude, so then at that point in time, so the Jews were going to have to go into Egypt to learn how to serve God. Right? You're going to go to learn to serve man, and then when you go to learn to serve man, then you're going to go ahead and then you're going to go ahead and then you'll learn to serve God. Right? If you learn to serve man. Now the problem is, why, if one person, right, if Abraham made the mistake, quote unquote, right, so why does the entire Jewish people have to go down into Egypt because of this, right? It wouldn't seem to be sort of a fair punishment, right? But it doesn't fit the crime, right? The sin doesn't fit the crime. Why is God making that the Jewish people are going to have to go ahead, and the Jewish people are going to have to spend 400 years? So what's the answer? So the answer is that he goes ahead, and Abraham is called the patriarch of the Jewish people, right? Why is he called the patriarch? Why is he called the patriarch of the Jewish people? Right? Because he's called the patriarch of the Jewish people. So literally you can say, well, because he and Sarah fathered Isaac, who fathered Jacob, who fathered the Jewish people. That's true, but it's much more than that. He's considered the patriarch of the Jewish people because he's considered the patriarch of the Jewish people because he not only physically created them, but he went ahead and he spiritually created the soul of the Jewish people. And that's why he and Sarah put into the Jewish people, right? They put into the soul, right, or their attributes, and that's why Isaac is called it, and Jacob is called the patriarch of the Jewish people. They were creating the Jewish soul. And what happens is, so you can imagine when you're creating the DNA of the Jewish soul, how do you create the DNA of the Jewish soul? Right? So you create the DNA of the Jewish soul is by the different attributes that they put in. Now that works both ways. It works for good and it works for bad. Because how does it work for good? So if they put in, for example, Abraham was the king of kindness, right? Right? And so because of that, because he was such a holy person and was the king of kindness, and so he put into the Jewish soul that we have inherent in our soul, the Jewish people are Rachmanim, right? Are Gomlei Chasadim, right? It's built into our DNA, right, to be kind, right? Because that was put in by Abraham. So if it was put in by Abraham, right, to be kind, right, so we get the good things of that. The problem is that not only do we get the good things, if they didn't put something in, so then it didn't get put into the Jewish soul. Now, what happens when something doesn't get put into the Jewish soul? What happens at that point in time? Right. So then, at that point in time, if it's not if it's not if it's not in the Jewish if it's not in the Jewish soul, not in the Jewish DNA, it has to be put into each person in their DNA, right? So now it needs to be put into each one of us separately, and that's why the entire Jewish people had to go down to Egypt, right? Because we had to go ahead and we had to learn how to serve God properly, right? To rectify, right? To rectify that which Abraham didn't put into the Jewish people. So that Abraham went ahead and Abraham went ahead and he shut down the yeshiva too radically. So at that point in time, he created inside the Jewish people, right, this lack, right, this lack of this lack of servitude to God, which made it now that the Jewish people were going to have to go spend 400 years in Egypt and hopefully come out of there learning how to serve God, right? And that's really what ended up happening. This really was the catalyst to the Jewish people going ahead, and the Jewish people for the Jewish people to go ahead and to end up in Egypt, right? Which was a pretty big it's a pretty big hit to the Jewish people. But here is one source of why the Jewish people had to spend 430 years in Egypt. Okay, so now he goes ahead and he shuts down the yeshiva.
But God promised Abraham that his children are going to be slaves in Egypt. Because of this, or just altogether?
No, because so it's very interesting. So if you take a look, so where does God promise Abraham that his children are going to have to go down into Egypt?
Race Bana Basarim.
Race Bana Basarim. And where is that? It's chapter 15. It's immediately after this story.
Oh, right after this, right.
Right after this.
That follows it then. Wow, that's interesting.
So the Talmud says, why these two things put one next to each other? So the answer is because this was the cause to that happening.
Interesting.
And that's the connection. Because again, because you all signed in on Lag BaOmer, I'll teach you something that normally I don't teach. Okay, so now you're going to get something. Because again, hold on. Because you all. So now I'm going to teach you something that I normally don't teach, and that is how old was Abraham at this point in time?
Well, he's not 95 yet, so I forget, he's in his 80s.
Norm, do you know how old was Abraham at this time?
75.
75. He was 75. Okay, you're saying then. Why are you saying 75?
I forgot why.
No, because Lech Lecha, Parshas Lech Lecha, starts off when it says Abraham was 75 years old when God told him to go out. Right, so that's chapter 13, right?
Okay.
Okay, fine. Right, that's why it's 75. That's why 75 is for the simplistic readers of the Torah. God wants you to think that Abraham is 75 at this point in time. Okay? For you sophisticated people, I'm about to share with you something that will, it blew my socks off, so let me help you out over here. Point to something out. Right? Chapter 15 is the covenant of the parts, right? How old was Abraham at the covenant of the parts? The covenant of parts, God tells Abraham, your children are going to be in exile for 430 years in Egypt. Okay? 430 years. which will make Abraham 70 at the covenant of the parts. So
Ah,
chapter 15, Abraham is 70. At the beginning of Lech Lecha, he's 75. And how old was he over here at the war of the 4 kings against the 5 kings? So now I'll give you a little math. I'm glad we have Norm. I'm glad we have you on the phone. So it'd be kind of like a little.
and back, so you know.
What? Right. So it's going to. So it's very fascinating. So it goes like this. So the kings of Sodom. How long? The king of Sodom, right? How long did they serve the 4 kings? So it says, right? So it says at the beginning of chapter 14 that they served them for 12, right? They served them, right? They served them. Right? What does it say over here? So it's like this. 12 years, right? Chapter 14, verse 4. 12 years they served Kedar Omer, and they rebelled 13 years, right? And they rebelled for 13 years. In the 14th year, Shlomo and the kings with him came and struck their farm, right? Etc. So how many years? So the people of Sodom served them for, right? So therefore, they served them for 12 years, and then they went ahead, and then they rebelled for 13 years. This is 14 years. So a total of 26 years. How long was Sodom around before it was destroyed? Remember, Sodom doesn't get destroyed till chapter 20. But Sodom is around for 52 years. Okay? Sodom was 52 years. And how old was Abraham when Sodom was destroyed? Right? Abraham was 99 when Sodom was destroyed, right? Because Abraham, the 3 angels came, one angel that came to destroy Sodom just came and told Abraham that you're going to have a child. Remember 3 angels coming and visited Abraham?
Right. Yeah.
Right. So now Abraham, when Sodom was destroyed, was 99, and Sodom was destroyed in year 52, and this is year 26. Okay, so it means how many years before Sodom was destroyed did this story happen? 26 years before it was destroyed, right? 52 minus 26 is 26. So what's 99 minus 26? Is 73. So Abraham at this point in time, this story, right, is Abraham was 73 years old. You're following? So the whole Lech Lecha, right, chapter 13, Abraham was 75. Chapter 14, it happens the story when Abraham was 73. And in chapter 15, Abraham is 70. You following with me? You with me?
Sort of.
Okay. Bobby, are you with me? Are you following this?
No, I had to pay attention to something else for a minute. Go ahead.
Okay. So Abraham in chapter 13, in the beginning of Parashat Lech Lecha, 75. He then,
Right.
in chapter
so
14...
This is before he left in Lech Lecha?
What was?
The War of the Kings.
The 4 kings happened, before Lech Lecha.
Before he left Babylon?
Well, chapter 15, if he was 70, he was already in Israel.
Okay.
And so Abraham had gone to Israel twice, not once. Right? Abraham, when he was 70, went to Israel and got the covenant of the parts. And then chapter 73 was he goes and he saves those. Then he leaves, and then God tells him at 75 to go back.
Oh, wow. Never heard that.
Normally I don't teach this because this is already this is already 2.0. But in tonight,
75, right? Lech Lecha 75.
Right.
and then he goes to Israel. He has this war with the four kings.
Right. That really happened 2 years before that.
Before he left, before left Lakai, right?
Yeah, before Lech Lecha. The Torah is written out of order. It's really...
Wait a minute. So it doesn't make sense altogether, because if you're saying that in the Bris Ben Abasarim, the covenant of the parts, Hashem said that you're going to be slaves for 400 years, that was as a result of his closing the yeshiva. So now we're saying that the thing of the parts was before that.
Okay, folks. Bubby's thinking. She's got the thinking cap on. Yeah, so it has to be very fascinating, right? Right. So good. That's a great question, right? If I'm telling you that the reason they had to go down into Egypt was only because Abraham shut down the yeshivas. So then how could God tell him when he was 70, tell him that when the story hadn't yet happened for them to deserve it?
Precisely. Back to the future.
Right. So the answer is very simple. Let's say carefully. God knows the future. Right? So God knows what's going to happen. So he said your children are going to go be in exile. Okay? That's what God told them ahead of time. And how do we know? This is exactly the reason, is because if you read Parshas Lech Lecha, then Parshas Lech Lecha is not in order. Right? Because, the story it should be chapter 15, 14, 13. Right? Right? And then chapter 16, right, is now, Abraham now is 85. Right? So if you go in the order of how old Abraham was and how these stories happened, it should really be Parshas Lech Lecha should start off with chapter 15, then it should go to chapter 14, and then it should go to chapter 13. Right? That should really be written that way. Why isn't it written that way? Right? So it's written out of order because to teach me this different idea. Right? That's really supposed to be that really the whole reason I had to go down to Egypt was because of the story that happened here with the 4 kings and the 5 kings. Okay? You got it? All right, don't worry about it. It's a little higher math.
Right.
Okay, anyway. All right, so now you have, so he goes and he shuts down his yeshiva. And how many guys does he have in his yeshiva?
318.
318. How many guys does he take with him to go to battle?
318.
Norm, why did you say 318? Bubby said 318.
Why did I say 318?
No, you said 0. Bubby said 318.
They didn't go because, you have to be somebody who's not planted a vineyard, somebody who's not just got married.
So very good. Jews go to battle, right? So now Rashi brings down 2 opinions. How many people went with him? Did he take 318 people with him, or did he take Eliezer? Right, and the numerical value of Eliezer's name is 318. Right. So therefore, if it's 318, right? 318 is right. Eliezer. If you take the word Aleph, Lamed, Yud, Ayin, Zayin, Resh, and you numerically spell that out, that comes out to 318. Right. So really, he only took Eliezer. Right, and how do we see that in the verse that that's what happened? So it's very interesting. So if you take a look, you have to turn to the Hebrew for a moment, right? Because in verse number 14, it says, when Abraham heard that his kinsman was taken captive, he armed his disciples who had been born in his house, 318, and he pursued them as far as Dan. And it says he pursued them as far as Dan. How do you say he pursued them till Dan? How do you say that in Hebrew?
Vayirdof Adan.
Vayirdof Adan. Right? Now, Vayirdof, if it was 318 men chasing them, what should it say?
Oh, it should have been Vayirdofu.
Right. In the Hebrew, it should have said Vayirdofu Adan, and they chased them till Dan. Right? But it doesn't say Vayirdof Adan. right? It doesn't say Vayidafu Adon that they chased them until done, right? It says Vayirdof Adon, and he in the singular chased them till done, right? So what does it mean? He in the singular it means that 380 men weren't with him. Why weren't the 380 men with him? 380 men weren't with him because they had bowed out. Why did they bow out? So they bowed out because, again, there's a, right, as Norm said, when the Jewish people go to war, right, there are 4 questions we ask them before, when they go for a war that they're not required to fight, okay, a war that they're allowed to fight. How do they go ahead and how do they do this? Right, what are the 4 questions they ask them, Norm?
Did you just get married? Did you just plant a vineyard? Did you just move into a house? And what was the other one? A 4th one I can't remember.
4th one is, are you afraid?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, I'm afraid, for sure.
If you're afraid, and why are you afraid?
Because I'm not trusting in Hashem.
No, I'm afraid because I might have sinned. I might have a sin, and therefore, sure, God's going to protect me, but if I sin, God's not going to protect me, right? And so therefore, I'm afraid I might have done a sin, and therefore, I don't go to battle, right? And so what do? Are you exempt from going to the army if you're afraid, or do you have to stay back and sort of keep the ranch? So depending on what the reason is, so right, so they don't go to battle, but they can still do logistics, okay? So they go ahead, and so he ends up telling the 380 men actually not even to come. So they shut down his yeshiva for a couple hours because these guys weren't going to battle, and yet because of that, the Jewish people end up enslaved in Egypt, right, for 210 years. And so then instead he and Eliezer go off to battle, and they go ahead and they defeat the 4 kings. Now, how do 2 people defeat these? And the Torah tells us these 4 kings are super strong, right? They're able to go ahead and to defeat the 5 kings. So if they're able to defeat the 5 kings, right? So then why are they? If they're able to defeat the 5 kings, then how was Abraham and Eliezer able to withstand them in battle?
Magic sand.
Oh, so they had the magic sand, right? Yeah. So what happened was they had right that Abraham threw sand, and God made the miracle that the sand turned into arrows and spears, and they went ahead and they killed the 4 kings, right? You know, can you imagine? It's almost like imagine you were a time traveler, and you showed up at one of these old-fashioned battles, and you showed up with a machine gun, right? So right. And it's a whole different type of war, right? And so what happens is, so they go ahead, and so they go ahead, and so they have this magic sand. They're able to defeat the 4 kings. Okay, fantastic, right? So verse number 15 says, and he and his servants deployed against them at night and struck them. He pursued them as far as Chova, which is to the north of Damascus, right? And this is the modern day Damascus, right? That's pretty far, right? Pretty far north of where they are. Okay, he brought back all the possessions. He also brought back his kinsman Lot with his possessions, as well as the woman and the people, right? So now he goes back, he takes all the captives and he brings them back, right? So now we have verse number 17. The king of Sodom went out to meet him after he returned from defeating Kedar Laomer, and the kings that were with him, to the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's valley. Then, in verse 18, but Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God the Most High. So who is this guy, Melchizedek?
King of Jerusalem.
King of Jerusalem. How do you know he's the king of Jerusalem?
That was the title of the king of Jerusalem at that time.
Hello, king of Jerusalem. The answer is because Salem is Jerusalem, right? Salem is Jerusalem, and that's actually why, if you know, in every state in America, there's a Salem. There's a Salem, Texas. There's a Salem. Everywhere in America, there's at least one city that's named Salem because they named it after Jerusalem, right? That's right. Right. That's why Jerusalem. So he was Melchizedek, king of Salem. What does Melchizedek mean? Melchizedek The righteous king, right? Melech, Malki is king. Tzedek is righteous, right? So he was known as the righteous king, right? That was the name, right? That was the name of the kings of Jerusalem, and it's also just important for us to know because who was Malki Tzedek? What was his real name?
Adam.
And Adam was dead.
Was the name Melchizedek?
What do you say? Shem. Noah's son.
Shem,
Noah's son Shem. And why is that important to us Jews?
Because we come from Shem.
Because we come from Shem. So if anyone says that we don't belong, man, division doesn't belong to us, point to chapter 14, verse number 18. We see already that our great grandfather, right, that he was the king of Jerusalem. Right? So it's called Malki Tzedek, means the righteous king. Right? He was the righteous king, and he was the king of Salem. Okay, brought up bread and wine, he was a priest of God the Most High. Now verse number 19. He blessed him, saying, Blessed is Avram of God the Most High, maker of heaven and earth. And blessed is God the Most High, who has delivered your foes into your hand, and he gave him a tenth of everything. So who gave who a tenth of everything?
Who gave who a tenth of everything?
Yeah.
Oh, Melchizedek. Well, I guess Avram gave him a tenth of what he took.
Avram, very good. Avram went and gave Melchizedek a tenth of everything. Why did he give him a tenth of everything?
It's kind of like tithing, you know.
Not kind of like tithing, right? So here's the source of tithing in the Torah, right? Right. One of the sources, right, is that he gave them because Melchizedek was the priest of God. The priest of God, he gets, right? So he's the Kohen. So when you make money, you have to give to the Kohen, right? You give 10%. You tithe. So Abraham gave Melchizedek 10% of everything. Now,
everything he took from the four kings.
Everything he took from the four kings, which was a lot of stuff, right? Because they just completely went ahead and then conquered these five cities, which were very, or city-states, these five countries that were very wealthy.
Yeah.
Right. So he conquers. Right. So he gives a tenth to Melchizedek. Now Melchizedek gave a blessing. Were these blessings good or bad?
In between. So.
Why are they in between?
Because I forgot why. But you told me once before. I just forgot.
Okay, good. So remember part of it. Very good. Mom, what do you think?
I don't know, Betsy. I didn't.
What was it good or what? What did you say?
What was the question?
Was it good or bad what Melchizedek did?
His blessing, was it good or bad?
Right, his blessings, right?
Good.
Well, it was good. But there's a problem with the blessings. What's the problem with the blessings?
He put Abraham's name before God.
He gave Abraham he gave Abraham a blessing, and then he went ahead and then he gave God a blessing. And then who do you bless first?
God.
First you bless God. Right? So what happened is that he went ahead and that he first gave a blessing. What happened was he gave the blessings in the wrong order. He first gave a blessing to Abraham, and then he gave a blessing to God, right? And always you should give a blessing to God first, right? So that kind of that he had them in the wrong order. Okay.
How
Verse
can he
number
bless
20.
God? Man cannot bless God.
No, man can for sure bless God. You can say, blessed be God, right? Baruch Hashem, right? So you're not really giving blessing. You're saying God, you're the source of all blessings, right?
Yeah, but that's the other way around. It's God blessing him.
Right. So, very, but you could say, right,
Through God's blessing, he's doing this, you know?
right, no, sure, right, it's all from God's blessing, right? But so, again, so it's all fine, right, to go ahead and to, right, it's all fine to go ahead and that give it, right, blessed is God the Most High, delivered your foes into your hands, right? Meaning saying, thank you, God, for doing this, right? Meaning being appreciative to God, right? You know, when we get out of, when we get out of Coronaville, right, are we going to make a blessing to God?
Yes, for sure.
Sure,
Especially
right?
if I get it. I'll be so happy if I don't get it.
Right. And that's right. We have to, right, to please God, you won't, right? If you have to go ahead, we have to make sure that we.
You got to
right,
tell me what the blessing
we
is.
give a blessing to God.
Blessing
Blessing to God is a good thing. Thanking God for all the miracles that He does is a wonderful thing. I'll tell you, just very interesting. I learned it today. It kind of was a bit scary. Do you know what Rabbi Akiva's students died from?
Each other enough cover.
What?
They didn't give enough cover to each other. I heard it was because they looked at each other with a narrow eye.
Okay, so right, so whatever it means, right? These are great sages. You have to understand what it means that they said.
Right.
But what disease did they die from?
Was it a plague?
Oh.
It was a plague. What type of plague?
I don't know. Coronavirus, maybe?
You don't laugh. The Gemara says it's a sakra, right?
What?
So they translate that as diphtheria.
Diphtheria.
Diphtheria is a problem of breathing.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right? And
Diphtheria?
yeah.
Oh.
Right? So diphtheria is a mouth and like throat/lung disease, right, where you can't breathe. Right?
I got to know.
Right? And sounds very similar to me like a corona type virus. And actually it's fascinating is that you know, so God willing that that today, right, that tonight is we have, right, we celebrate because right, the plague stopped. So God willing that the plague will stop
And
here
he
as
wrote
well.
some events.
Right, but it's just really interesting that it's actually kind of like the same thing that we're talking about over here, and kind of pretty fascinating. Okay, so anyway, that's just a sidebar. So now verse 21, the king of Sodom says to Abram, "Give me the people and take the possessions for yourself." Right? So he says, okay. He says, listen. He says, do me a favor. You know, give me back my people. You keep all the possessions, right? And I'll just take back my people, which is interesting, right? Is that what type of request is that?
What do you mean? What kind of request is that?
Well, I mean, again, Abraham, it'll all belong to Abraham, right? Why should he give the people back?
Well, because I see. Well,
Right?
the four kings wanted was the four kings that wanted the people back because that was the source of their power.
The source of their power, their wealth, right? We'll go ahead. We'll get everybody back, right? Okay, good. So, well, what does Abraham say? So Abraham now responds as follows, verse 22. Norm, do you want to read?
I don't have my.
Okay. Mom, you want to read?
Sure. Abram said to the king of Sodom, I lift up my hand to Hashem, God the Most High, maker of heaven and earth. If so much as a thread to a shoestring, or if I shall take from anything of yours, so you shall not say, it is I who made Abram rich. Far from me, only what the young men have eaten, and the share of the men who accompanied me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, they will take their portion.
Right, so what does Abraham say?
He doesn't want anything.
He says, I want nothing of yours, right?
Yeah.
Right, don't give me anything. I want nothing of yours. Right now, it sounds like a really magnanimous, a wonderful thing. Is this a good thing or bad thing that Abraham does?
So.
It's a good thing.
It seems like a good thing, right? It's certainly written in a way that it's a good thing, right? Right, except the Talmud says there's a big problem here. What's the problem?
The people later on became so corrupt that God had to destroy Saddam.
Oh, it's very interesting, right? 26 years later, all these people that he's giving back to the king of Sodom and Gomorrah are dead, right? So let's say he would have kept them as his captives. Let's say he would have kept all these people as his captives. What would have happened?
They would have become righteous.
They would have become righteous. So Abraham really should have kept them, right? By giving them away was the problem, right? He gave them away, right? He gave them back to their king, but that basically signed their death warrant.
Yes.
Right? You got to be careful, when what you go ahead and what you're doing. It's right. On one hand, it seems quite a magnanimous thing that he did. But the problem is that the unintended consequence of doing that was that these people were all dead 26 years later. They were dead. Their wives were dead. Their kids were dead. Everyone was dead. Right? Which is right. It's so the law of unintended consequence, which is pretty amazing. Okay, but the idea of not wanting to take anything from you and it just wanted to come straight from God, right? So that's a beautiful message. So much so, says the Talmud, that when Abraham is so much from a thread to a shoelace, I want from you. So what two mitzvahs? We got two mitzvahs because Abraham said this. What are the two mitzvahs?
To fill in.
Fill in, which are straps.
And
tzitzis, right? That we get to wear tzitzis, right? This comes from Abraham saying, if I don't want from a string to a shoelace, right? So we got the mitzvah of tzitzis and we got the mitzvah of tefillin. Now, very fascinating. I'm going to teach you a law that always bothered me, and I think that this is the source of it. Okay. When we put on our shoes, how do we put on our shoes?
Right, left.
Right, left. And what shoe do we tie first?
Left, right.
Left, right. Right. So we put on our right shoe first, then we put on our left shoe, then we tie our left shoe, then we tie our right shoe. Okay. Why do we tie our left shoe first?
I have no idea. You just told me to do that.
Right. So we tie our left shoe first because we tie we tie our tefillin on our left hand. Okay, that's what it says, right? It's because we tie our tefillin on our left hand, therefore we tie our left shoe first. You got it? Okay, and so it always bothered me. Who cares? You put your tefillin on your left hand, so you're gonna tie your shoelace first. Like that seems so bizarre. That's why it always struck me. It was something that never ever made sense to me. But then I'm going to tell you why. You know why it makes a lot of sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because how did we get the mitzvah tefillin? We got the mitzvah tefillin because Abraham said to the kings, to the 5 kings, if from a string to a shoelace, I want nothing of yours. And in the merit of saying, I don't want your leather shoelace, we got the mitzvah of tefillin, which goes on our left hand. Right? And so therefore, to show you that our shoelace is tied to our wearing our tefillin, so the law is that we tie our shoelace on our left first, because that's what we put our tefillin on. Right? Because there's an inherent connection between our tefillin and our shoelace. Right? Because in the merit of Abraham turning down the shoelace, even a simple shoelace, from the 5 kings, we got the mitzvah of tefillin that we tie on our hands.
And the Kabbalists say that you bind your left arm because the left arm is the arm for receiving for no reason, or to receive for no reason. And this way you're binding it, you're strapping it down so it will not be, so it'll behave itself while you're praying.
Ah, very nice.
That's what they say. Yeah.
Okay, and tonight is the night of the Kabbalists, right? And tonight is the yahrzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's the author of the Zohar, right? That tonight is the Okay.
What is that?
What?
What's that noise?
No, that was the phone ringing. I just, from somebody else.
So
Okay.
is mom in Israel or is she here in Dallas?
This is my mother-in-law. She's in Baltimore. So yeah. So right. So anyway, so that's the connection between the two, right? That to me always seems a beautiful connection between the two from this verse. Okay. It's only, and he says, right. So far from me, only what the young men have eaten, and the share the men who accompany me, under Eshkol and Mami, they will take their portion. Right? And so that he goes ahead and he teaches us an important lesson, that even, right, it teaches us a lesson, right, going back, that when an army goes to battle, the people who do the fighting as well as the people that stay and guard the camp, both of them are entitled to spoils of the war. Right? So they're both entitled to spoils of the war. Right, and so therefore, so Abraham says, "Listen, I could give to you." So he says to the 5 kings, "Listen, any part that belongs to me, I can give to you, but the part that belongs to Anu Eshkamamai, to the people that stayed back and guarded, that doesn't belong to me. And you have to get the permission from them. You can't get the permission from me." Right? Okay. So that's what we need to right. That's what we need to learn over here. Okay. Now we go ahead. So now we're up to chapter 15. Okay. So now we're at chapter 15. Okay. So now chapter 15. Now, okay. It's like, okay. Right. So now we go ahead. Now we go to now we go on to now chapter 15, which is probably probably the most important section in the entire Torah. Okay, the important chapter in the entire Torah. Right? Why is it the most important chapter in the entire Torah?
Is that the covenant of the parts in chapter 15?
Covenant, yeah, chapter 15 is the covenant of the parts. Right? So just the important for us to know, right? It's the covenant of the parts. Okay, that's why it's just the most important. This is where the Jewish people inked the deal with God to become the Jewish people. Right? The most important story. Maybe the Jewish people accept the Torah of Mount Sinai. Right? But it's certainly in the top 3. Right? Most important points in the Torah is this chapter 15. Okay.
Now that's placed before Lech Lecha, or?
Yeah, it actually, because Abraham is 70 at the covenant of the parts.
Aha.
Okay.
He's 75.
Abraham's Lech Lecha is 75.
So he was in Israel to defeat the 4 kings.
The War of the 4 Kings happened when he was 73.
Ah.
Okay? So it goes 75, 73, and 70.
So the covenant of the parts took place in Babylon. Is that what you're
saying?
No,
it took place in Israel.
I'm confused. You got me.
Yeah, no, you're not confused. This follows. I'm upending your apple cart, okay? But whatever you thought, throw it out now. I'm teaching you something brand new, okay? And you just have to you have to digest it. It's going to take you a little time to digest this, right? Because it's something say
it one more time quickly, okay?
And I'll say this one more time. I'll probably say it another 5 more times, and that's okay. Okay? So listen to this. Right? Abraham at the covenant of parts was 70.
Right.
Where did the covenant of the parts take place?
In Israel.
Mount Moriah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the Temple Mount. And that's where it takes place.
Okay.
It's the Temple Mount. Okay, so Abraham, when he was 70 years old, was already in the land of Israel. Okay, you with me?
Yes.
Okay, the war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings with Lot took place right, took place when when Abraham was 73.
2 years before.
2 years before Lech Lecha. Right, 2 years before Lech Lecha, and 3 years after the covenant of the parts.
Wait, oh my God, you got me so confused here.
No, not confused. Listen, the covenant of the parts, he was 70.
Right.
The war of the 4 kings and the 5 kings, he was
73.
73. And Lech Lecha, he was 75.
But Lech Lecha is when he's told to leave Babylon and go to Israel.
But which he had left, right? Which he already had gone to Israel before this.
So how can God say to him, pick up your stuff and leave Babylon and go to Israel?
How can he? Because he was back in Babylon.
Oh, he went back to Babylon?
Yes, sir.
Why did he go back to Babylon? That's crazy.
I hear your question. I don't know. It could be that his father was still alive, potentially. Yeah, his father was still alive. Right? So why he did that's a good question.
But Lech Lecha says, pick up everything that you have, your whole household, and move to Israel. So
Yes.
when he went back to Babylon, did he take everything with him?
I guess so.
I am so confused, Rabbi. Why would he do that? That's crazy.
That's a good question. I don't know enough to get yourself a smarter rabbi.
There's no smarter rabbi. That's the problem.
There are. Right,
Really?
there are. So, right,
Well,
so,
that's-
right,
that's
so,
what
right,
it-
so it was. So that kind of is right. So now we go ahead and now we have right. So now we have that's just what it is. Right. I'm just letting you know that it's really something that normally that people don't know, right? That's what's happening. Okay. So just because you signed on tonight in honor of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right, and hearing the great secrets of the Torah are revealed tonight, and so I wanted to share with you one of the great secrets that most people don't know, and then just sharing it with you and letting you know what's going on with that. All right? That's just FYI, just some more information that you might not have known. Okay? We're good?
Good.
Okay. Okay. So now chapter 15, verse number 1. Okay, so after these words, the word of Hashem came to Avram in a vision, and saying, "Fear not, Avram, I am a shield for you. Your reward is very great." Right. So now, right. He says, "Fear not, Avram." Right. I am a shield for you. Your reward is very great. Right. Why should Avram be afraid?
Well, he's a humble man, so I imagine he's afraid that he's committed some kind of sin that he's not even aware of.
Okay, good. That could be one thing, right? That maybe he was afraid, right? That he was, right? That it was someone because of that. Why? What else?
What else?
God just did a tremendous miracle for Abraham.
Right.
Right. Right. He went and he had sand turned to kings into bullets, and he was able to to go ahead and to wipe out the four kings, right? These tremendously strong people, right? So he was able to do that. So what happened? Abraham now became afraid, right? Because what does he say? He said, "This is crazy."
He used up all his merits.
Right? I used up my merit, right? My merit that I'm going ahead and right? You have all this merit that took place. I no longer have any merit, right? So what happens? So what does God say to him?
Do not be afraid.
Don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid. Fear not, Abraham. I am a shield for you. Your reward is very great, right? So God says, Abraham, don't worry about it. You got a good spot in my heart, right? We're going to take you through this. Okay. And by the way, just as an aside, sorry, just pop back for a second. Right? Melchizedek went and gave a blessing to Abraham before he gave a blessing to God, which he said was a bad thing. What was the consequence of him doing that? What happened because he did that?
He lost the priesthood.
Because he lost the priesthood, and who became the new priest?
Abraham?
Abraham. Right? The Jewish people become the new Kohanim. Right? Melchizedek loses it, and Abraham goes and he gets that. Okay?
Okay.
Okay? Good. Okay, so now, right, fear not, Abraham, I am Mashiach for you, your reward is very great. And Abraham said, my Lord Hashem Elohim, what can you give me seeing that I go childless? And the steward of my house is the Maskian Eliezer, right? Abraham says to God, you're promising me all this great stuff, right? Right? But I don't have any children, right? So what has God said? And then Abraham said, see, to me you have given no offspring, and see, my steward inherits me. Right? He says, you don't give me any children, what's going to happen? It's all going to be, we're all in trouble. Right? It doesn't matter what you give me, because as soon as I die, it's all gone. Verse number 4, suddenly, the word of Hashem came to him, saying, that one will not inherit you, only him that shall come forth from within you shall inherit you. Okay, and he took him outside and said, gaze now towards the heaven and count the stars, if you are able to count them. And he said to him, so shall your offsprings be. And he trusted in Hashem, and he reckons for him as righteousness. Okay, so what happens over here? Right, so it says, only him that comes forth from within you, he will be the one that will inherit you. And he took him outside, says, gaze now, right, gaze now towards the heaven, and count the stars if you are able to count them. And he said, so too shall your offsprings be, and he trusted to Hashem, and he reckoned to him as righteousness.
So here, he only blesses him to have offspring as many as the stars, but not the sand. The sand part comes later?
Sand part, right. Sand part's in a different place. Right? Okay. One time he says, one time he says, you're going to be as many as the sand, right? And, right, the sand, and over here it says many as the stars.
Right.
Right? And it's very fascinating. Right? Why does he use these two metaphors? One is the sand and one is the stars.
Well, maybe sand is more finite than the stars.
Well, again, right? But it's also, one is low down, one is high up. Right? It's like, just like Jacob, right? Jacob's name is Yaakov and Yisrael, right? So what does the name Yaakov mean?
Heel.
Heel. And the name Israel, Yisrael?
Well, it was Hashem.
Okay, but it's also Sarkel, right? A minister of God, a Yasharel, straight with God. Right? Yisrael is this high name of God, right? Right? That's what Yisrael, right? And Akev, Yaakov means heel, means the downtrodden. Right, so we're like the sand and we're like the stars, right? And again, in either way.
I thought
Now,
Yisra
what?
meant striving with God.
One more
Doesn't mean,
time.
it doesn't mean striving with God.
Well, again, kisarisa, right? Because you struggled, right? Because you struggled with God and you overcame, right? And that was one because the angel came when he was fighting with him. The angel, right? The angel gave him the name Yisrael, right? He gave him that name, right? So you go ahead and so you have, right? He has different names, right? To what he was doing, right? So it's interesting. So in essence, he takes him outside and says, "Gaze now towards heaven and count the stars if you're able to count them." And he says, "So shall your offspring be." Right now, by the way, can you count the stars?
No, there's too many.
Too many? How many stars are there?
Trillions and trillions and trillions.
Uh-huh.
There's trillions of galaxies. Each galaxy, there's hundreds and hundreds of millions of stars. There's just too many stars.
Okay, so the good news is, don't try counting them with your hands because you won't be finished, right?
Yeah,
But if you learn tractate brachos, then you know how many stars there are.
What'd you say?
In the tractate brachos, right? It says how many stars there are.
How many are there?
There's like 10 to the 19th.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So that means it's one with 19 zeros after it. That's how, right? That's how many stars there are. Right? So right that there are 19 stars. Right? And so it's a pretty cool thing, right? It's right that there are 10 to the 19 stars.
A very big number, Rabbi.
What?
That's extremely big number.
Now, what is it? It's a billion billion? A billion is 9 zeros?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
right.
This is way beyond our imagination.
Right, so it's a billion, 10 billions. Right? That would get us to 19, right?
No.
Right, 10 billion billions. And that would get us 10 to the 19. That's a very big number, even bigger than the CARES package, I think.
And the deficit.
Yeah. At least for now. All right. So, right. So it's right. It's a very. So he said he sees the numbers. Now there's a different problem because if you actually take a look at it, this seems to have been taking place during the day.
But it says
stars in the day.
outside, which means he took up outside of this universe.
So, okay, good. So simplistically, what does it mean? So simplistically, I heard a nice explanation, is that God took him outside. How many stars can you see during the day?
None.
One.
Just the sun.
Just the sun, one star. So it's one star, but very powerful. And so God says, look up at the sun and you'll see it. God was telling to him, I'm going to take you out, right? I'm going to take you out, and I'm going to take you outside of the stars, right? And you'll be few, but you'll be very powerful. That's what I heard was a nice thing. But Norm, what you said, I want to go with what you said, right? Because, right? So Rashi here, Rashi goes ahead and Rashi gives us a couple of different things and takes them outside, right? Right. So he goes. So he says like this. He says, go outside your mazel. Okay, go outside your the mazel is sort of like the celestial star in which you operate. Right, or that you see in the mazalo, you see in astronomically that you're not going to have any children, any Avram. So God says to him, Avram, which was his name right now, won't have, but Abraham will have a son. Sarai won't give birth, but Sarah will give birth. Right? I'm going to call you by a different name, and I'm going to change your astrology. Okay? Right? And so really, right? And so that's God says in very simple. God says very simple. He says, go take a look. He says, Avram, which you name now, won't have a child, and Sarai won't have a child. He says, but once we change your name from Avram to Avraham, then Avraham will have a child, Avram won't have a child.
That's the same.
Sarai,
when we
your
change
wife
present.
Sarai, as long as she's Sarai, will not have a child. But once she turns to Sarah, she will have a child. Right? And right, and so right, he says he's telling true you won't have it now, but you're going to have one. Right? When we change your name and we change Sarah's name, so then at that point in time you're going to right, you're going to go ahead and you're going to be something different. And the third idea that Rashi brings down, which is very nice, it says right in English it's hard to tell. He says, gaze now towards the heaven. What word does he use when he says gaze now towards the heaven? Right, what's the Hebrew word that he's using now? What does it mean, gaze now towards the heaven?
Habet, no.
Habet na hashamayma. Right, go gaze towards the heaven. Okay, there's only one little problem now with gazing towards the heaven. What's the problem with gazing towards the heaven? Is when the Torah uses the word habet. Right? What does the word habet mean?
Look. No?
Look. Okay. What's the difference between habet or re'eh? Re'eh. So you take a look.
Perfunctory. Ray is more perfunctory, and habet is more like analyze.
So it's interesting. The word habet. Where else is the word habet used in the Torah? So it says habet. We ask God habet u're'eh, right? Look and see. Kinu lag b'goyim, right? How we've been beat up by all the goyim, right? So habet means, it always means from on top looking down. Okay, the word habet means to look down, right? So how could God tell Abraham, right? Habet na hashemayma, look down and count, right? Right. Look down from the heavens. Look downwards. Right. Look down from the heavens. From on top, look downwards. Habet no hashmayim. So Rashi says that God took Abraham, took him on an outer space journey. He took him above the stars. And he says, Habet na, look down and see all the stars if you can count them. How many billions and billions of stars, right? So too will your children be.
So he took them out of the finite world into the infinite world.
Basically.
Yeah.
Right. And it says that you, the Jewish people, you're going to go ahead, you're going to transcend the whole world.
Amazing.
Amazing. Isn't that amazing? Right?
Yeah.
You're going to transcend the whole world.
That's why they say Jews don't operate in the normal world. They operate above the world, outside of the normal fashion.
Correct. Right. We operate in a totally different way. Right. And that's what we do. Right. And we operate in a totally different fashion in how we operate in this world.
So
okay.
Maybe this is the reason why there's so many Jewish Nobel Prize winners in science, because truly it's like 40% of Nobel Prizes in science are won by Jewish people.
Mm-hmm.
And we're only like 1/4 of 1% of the world's population. Not even 1%. So it's totally disproportionate. And I think this comes from this verse.
Habet, Master tells them, Habet Nashvaim, go and count them. And I think there's another layer here saying this. is that God is telling Abraham, you should know, the Jewish people, we don't operate, right? We don't operate in a normal sense that the world operates. And not only that, we don't have. There's a famous saying saying, "Ein mazel li Yisrael," right? There's no astrology to the Jewish people, right? And what does that mean? It means that there is no mazel, meaning there's no stars that we operate under, and that our whole destiny is dependent on what we do and how we change it. And there's nothing that we have to worry about something going ahead and saying, well, the astrology says X, Y, or Z. And someone says, well, there's an astrology thing. To us, it's irrelevant, right? To us, it's irrelevant, right? The astrology to us is something that is totally irrelevant to who we are and what we are.
So
and then that's like take Abraham out. What?
Not bound by our stars.
We're not bound, right? We're not bound by our stars, right? God takes Abraham and takes him above and says, he says, look down. He says, we operate in a totally different world and a totally different level of understanding, right? There's nothing here that applies to us, right? Or that's applicable to us, right? Right. The whole thing is something that is totally beyond, right? Or really nothing to do with us, right? It has zero control over us, right? We're above the world, right? We go ahead and we operate above the world in a totally different way than anything else that operates, right? And that's what it says. Habeitna Hashemayim. This is such a great idea. It's such a beautiful. The imagery is beautiful, right? God takes Abraham and takes him out of this world and sticks him on top and says, "There's nothing here that you're bound by, right? There's nothing here. There's no such thing as normal, right? What the whole world does. You Jewish people are totally different, and you totally have a direct relationship with me," says God. You don't have to worry. There's no stars I control. There's no astrology, right? There's not, right? Your relationship with me is something direct, and therefore has nothing to do with anything else in the world, right? And that to me is such an amazing message, right? That we're in a time where we live in a totally different, what do they call it? In a totally different dimension, right? We operate in a totally different way than anyone else operates.
Time, space, continuum.
What?
Totally different time, space, continuum.
Right.
Not bound
We have a totally,
or time.
right. Well, we control it all right. Shabbos, right? We suspend time. We just live in a totally different relationship to the world. We don't live underneath the world, right? We live on top of the world, right? We control it, right? It has no control over us. Nature doesn't control us. That is nothing that can touch us. That has anything to do with us, right? And that's really these ideas. When God says He takes them outside, He says, "Habat na Shemaim." He says, "Look down on it, because it's nothing that controls you, has anything to do with you." Right? And that's right, and that's the famous this famous thing where the Talmud says, "Ein mazel yisrael." Right? There's no mazel, there's no astrology sign, right, to the Jewish people. Right? It has zero effect on us. It doesn't control us at all. Right? And that's how it goes about, and that's where it is. Now, interesting, right? So, if Ein Mazel Yisrael, the Jewish people don't have any of these astrology signs or anything like that, so then why do we yell out Mazel Tov?
Good mazel.
But we don't have Mazel.
What's that?
We just said we don't have good Mazel. Right? We don't have that. What does it mean, Mazel Tov?
Congratulations.
Right? So I explain to you what when we say Mazel Tov, what are we really saying? Okay, when we say Mazel Tov, what we're really saying, the word Mazel comes from the Hebrew word nozel, to flow. Okay? And what we're saying is that you should have a Mazel Tov. It means you should have a good flow.
Good flow.
A good flow, meaning that God has all the blessings up in heaven. Right? And he's just waiting to be able to send those blessings down to us. How do we create those things to go ahead to create those things that flow down to us? Right? So normally it's through prayer, right? Through prayer is how we go ahead and we create we create the shoots. I always think of shoots and ladders. Right? We create the pipelines that God could go ahead and can send those blessings down to us. And all it's waiting for is for our prayers. And when we say Mazel Tov, what we're saying is that a person should have a good flow, and those blessings should come and should rain down from heaven and should come down to us, right? Or to come down to the person who wishing Mazel Tov to, who we're wishing a good flow to, right? Because we're saying, right, we want you to go ahead and to have that flow of blessings from heaven. We want that to come down, and we want you to receive those blessings, right? It has nothing to do with the stars. Right, because Ein Mazel Yisrael, right? There's no mazel, right? There's no. I'm trying to think of a good English word, but there's no. Nature has no control over us, and it comes out. It's very cool. Why doesn't nature have any control over us?
Because we're above nature.
Because according to nature, the Jewish people don't exist. Why don't we exist?
Because it's not natural.
Because remember, Sarai, right, Abraham's wife, couldn't have children. Right? Remember, Sarai's wife couldn't have children. Right? So according to nature, the Jewish people don't exist.
Right.
There's nothing in nature that we exist as an anomaly in nature.
Yeah,
right? We're a thread that's been inserted by God into nature.
She had her first child when she's 90 years old.
And 90, and not, but remember, Sarah didn't have a womb. Right? She was missing machinery to have a child. Right? So that's why Ein Mazel Yisrael. There's no celestial control over the Jewish people, because Jewish people don't exist in nature. Right? We're an anomaly of nature. We should never have been there. We should never have been born. Abraham did have children before. Right? How do we know Abraham had children before?
Because he had one with Hagar.
How about Hagar? Right? He had Yishmael. Right? Abraham could have children. Abraham's not a problem having children.
Yeah,
Sarah was having children. It was impossible for her to have children.
Yeah.
Right? It was impossible for her to have children. Right? Impossible for her to have children. So, right? So that's the concept of Ein Mazel Yisrael. God takes Abraham and says, listen, Abraham, don't worry about anything that exists in the world. It's all a figment of your imagination. It has no control over you. Right? You go ahead and you go direct to God. Right? You go direct to God. There's nothing else that you need to worry. Right? You're going straight to God. Right? You don't have to worry about any of these other things. Right? You worry about not having children, don't worry about it. Right? It's something that is just something that is totally not important to you. Right? And it has zero effect on you. Right? And I think that's something that certainly in these times we need to sort of be kind of just recognizing, right, that we operate on a different level, in a different
time-space continuum.
Higher space, right? The higher space continuum, right? We operate in a different realm of anything else that the world exists on, right? Then we just have to remember that we have to attach ourselves to this higher continuum. We'll recognize that this is where we come from, and then everything else becomes irrelevant to us. That's what God says. God takes Abraham out and says, doesn't apply to you. Don't worry about it. Right? And he says, so shall be your children. Right? And then we have verse number 6. Right? And he trusted in Hashem. Right? And he reckoned to him as righteousness. Right? Because Abraham had now to right? Right? That's interesting. So he says, God, great. God says is going to have it. Right? Right? So he goes ahead, right? And he says, right? And he says it was for him for charity. It was wonderful what he went and what he did. Okay, folks, it's that time again. Let's do this. Let's do this because right? So let's count the Omer. So then we could talk a little bit about. Then we could go on, right? So last night we counted 32. I'm going to say the bracha, and then you could go ahead. You could I should say the bracha, right? And then we'll continue with the Omer. Okay. Last night again was 32. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvos v'tzivanu al sfiras ha'omer. Hayom shlosha u'shloshim yom sheim arba shavuos v'chamisha yomim la'omer. Today is the 33rd day of the Omer, 33rd day, which is 4 weeks and 5 days of the Omer. Harachman hu yasid lanu v'odis beis hamikdash l'mekoma b'meher v'imenu amen salah. May God return to us the service of the temple into its place, speeding on our days. Amen. And so now we can celebrate the holiday of Lag BaOmer, right, which is a very auspicious time. It's the time when the students of Rabbi Akiva stop dying, and it's the yahrzeit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right, who is truly a great Talmudic scholar. I think he's mentioned in Talmud close to 2,300 times, right? In the Talmud, he's mentioned, and he wrote down the Zohar, right? Till this point in time, right? The Zohar was not written down, right? It's the oral law, right? It went ahead and it was something that was passed along, right? But something that wasn't written down, and he went ahead, and he authored the Zohar, right? He went ahead and he's the author of the Zohar, and so we have that. And how many secrets of the Torah that he revealed to us, and to give us to be able to spend our lives with, and the merit of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, right, and all the great sages in which we have gone ahead. We've studied the Torah, right. We should truly be able to get to a place of truly being able to serve God in the temple speedily in our days. This whole week is the Kabbalistic sphere work on of Hod, of beauty, and it's epitomized by Aaron, right? It's epitomized by Aaron, and tonight, which is the the 5th day of the 4th week, right? 4 weeks and 5 days is really 5 and 5. It's really, right, and every day. Tonight is the day of Hod Sheba Hod, right? It's the beauty of beauty, right? And that's really that God should help us reveal and to learn and to study the beauty of His Torah and His commandments, and to be able to truly serve Him speedily in our days in the most amazing way that we can, and we should have only health and spiritual success and material blessings.
Amen. One second, Betsy. The Zohar was part of the original Torah Shabbat Peh?
Of course.
Is that what you said?
Yes, that's what I said. I
never heard that.
Yeah, sure.
And then he just wrote it down?
Yeah, he compiled it and wrote it down. Right? There is no Torah that exists that Moses didn't teach the Jewish people.
Say what you just said?
There is no part of Torah that exists that wasn't given to Moses at Mount Sinai.
Okay, so,
Okay, all Torah that ever was to be learned was all given to Moses on Mount Sinai.
so the Zohar was nothing new. They had been handed down per people to mount verbally.
Verbally, you sure? Yeah,
Oh, I never knew that.
yeah.
Well, I thought Shimon Bar Yochai had met with great rabbis from his generation in the cave, and they discussed different sections of the Torah.
But sure.
And then he wrote it down what they said.
Correct.
I said. So it's kind of like the Talmud in a way. It's almost an extension of the oral Torah.
Correct. Okay, it is part, not only extension of the Torah, it was written down before, remember the Talmud was not written down to roughly 300 years after, well the Mishnah was written 100 years after him, and the Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud was written 300 and maybe 400 years after him.
Yeah, so he's way before the Talmud.
It's right before the Talmud was written down, but the Talmud was given to Moses on Mount Sinai.
Yeah, and so was the Zohar then.
Exactly, that's what I said. So was the Zohar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Very, very good, Rabbi.
Thank you, Betsy.
Alrighty.
Excellent here.
Thank you all for joining. We'll be back here tomorrow night again if you'd like to join us for Breakneck Through the Bible Exodus edition, 7:30. And we'll see you all same bad time, same bad station. Don't make too many bonfires.
Have a happy Lag BaOmer.
Happy Lag BaOmer. Alrighty. Thanks.
Lag BaOmer.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, Norm.
Bye-bye.